At this time, we'll call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Public Works, October 7th, 2024. Betty, roll please.
Mayor Boyd.
I'm here.
Alderperson Carpenter.
Here.
Alderperson Esterkan.
Here.
Alderperson Hanson.
Here.
Alderperson Levna.
Here.
Everybody is here. Next item, public comment upon matters not on the agenda. Comments made during the public comment period shall pertain only to matters under the jurisdiction of the Board of Public Works. Anyone in person or virtually have any public comment upon matters not on the agenda. Everyone's here for something on an agenda, it looks like. Virtually, same thing. Second time, public comment upon matters not on the agenda. Now's your time. Third and final time, public comment upon matters not on the agenda. Just state your name. All right. Up next, the items. Approval of the August 12th, 2024 Board of Public Works meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve.
A second.
Motion by Alderperson Carpenter, second by Alderperson Esterkan. Discussion or comments on the minutes? Seeing there are none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 2, consider and possible action on Civic Group Welcome Plaque Policy. Scott, you're up first.
So at our June 10th,
You're not on. There you go.
sorry about that. So at our June 10th board meeting, we had further discussion regarding the civic signs that were in Bicentennial Park and right here in South Broadway. What came out of that Board of Public Works meeting was for staff to move forward and actually remove the 2 existing signs, amend the civic group welcome plaque policy, which is in your packet tonight, to include the city covering the labor and equipment costs to install a new sign, waive the application fees for the service groups that exist today that are on existing signs, and then the civic groups would be responsible for material costs for a new sign or signs that would be installed at a later date. Since that meeting, staff took those recommendations and discussions we had here, worked with the city attorney, drafted up and revised the policy that you have before you at this time. So basically, also since then, the 2 existing signs have been removed. We've had the plaques now since then, since I think it was August. I think 2 of the 9 civic groups at this time have actually picked up the signs. After the October 15th deadline we gave the civic groups, who will dispose of the rest of them. Basically, I did forward the revised civic policy to the groups for comments or feedback. We did not receive any at this time. Basically, what we're looking at, once the policy is approved, staff will work with the civic groups to kind of look at a location to install the new signs. As is indicated in some of the minutes there's not a lot of, I don't want to say support for the signs, but a lot of the civic groups didn't feel there was anything they got out of having the existing signs that were there, and let alone to help have to fund a new sign. So I'm not sure we will get 9 civic groups on there. Might get a handful if we do move forward to install new signs. So basically what staff was looking for at this point from the Board of Public Works is approving the civic group welcome plaque policy that you have in your packet.
Thank you. Questions or comments? I guess one comment might be is if we do approve it, that's fine, but reach out to the civic groups again to see who wants to be on it. I mean, if we're only going to have 2 or 3, is that really worthwhile? Number one. Number two, there was a group that I think offered to pay for the portion of the cost to make sure we nail that down and get that in a contract as well too. Other questions, comments? Again, I think this resolution looks fine. Alderperson Levna.
Well, then should the policy reflect something about having a certain number of groups recognized on the signs?
Oh, true.
If we're going to put up the whole thing to accommodate multiple groups and then only one group puts up their plaque, that, I don't know.
Go ahead, Scott.
Well, really the policy was what to do moving forward, the place, the structure, the framework to install the plaques. There was really never no discussion. It's a very valid point. Discussion as far as how many at a minimum we want. I know there was talk about at the board can we have more than 9? Because the existing sign could only allow 9. I think kind of the design that staff came up with could probably hold a dozen. But you are correct, we may only have 1 or 2 placards on a big structure. Nobody else wants to, participate. So, I mean, that's something I guess the board may want to consider moving forward as well.
I guess that could involve amendment of the policy that we have in front of us, or Scott?
I think it really comes down to, I don't know necessarily it's an amendment to the policy, but really what's the board and ultimately council decision, how many minimum do you want to have on that structure? I mean, if you had 6, for example, and it holds 12, you got it half full. If you have 3 that holds 12, I mean, it's 75% empty. So, I mean, it's really, I think what the board wants to do moving forward. I mean, and I can let the civic groups know if we don't get a minimum amount of participants, then we're not going to look at even installing another
Yeah,
sign.
I agree with that. Alderperson Carpenter.
But why can't we have a smaller sign? Why don't we find out how many really,
Let's just find out how many.
how many are really interested, and then we can maybe decide the sign doesn't have to hold 12, it only has to hold 6.
Yeah, I think definitely.
You know what I
do
mean?
that.
We can downsize whatever you wish to not have it so wide or whatever you'd like.
So get some kind of firm commitments, however.
Yes,
I
I
don't
try-
think we should just go willy-nilly with this and then get 1 on that thing regardless of what it is. But
Right.
yes. good
Well,
point.
yes, that
gonna-
would be my suggestion.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to Scott first and then Alderperson Ledmano.
And one of the things I did indicate, I mean, once we did talk about a location where to go, I was going to be bringing it back to the board and council. So, I mean, definitely as part of that discussion, if once I find out, I'll bring it back to the board on that topic as well. And then because I mean, if the sign size itself, the structure shrinks, I mean, the costs shrink as well. But we can definitely bring that information back.
Thank you.
Very good. Alderperson Ledmano.
But then when we have to be able to open it up to groups down the road if they wanted to add,
That's
we'd have to almost
yep.
be able to build onto the sign if we did do it
Yeah,
smaller
that's
and
one of
then
the-
add on to it later or something.
Well, as long as they meet the criteria within the policy, correct? I think
So-
we kind of built that in.
Well, what would happen is we downsize, I guess, I think what the older person, I don't know, is trying to get at. Right now, for example, it held 9, so the policy allows for first come, first serve. Once those 9 spots are filled, nobody else can get on it. So if we downsize it where it holds 4, and, all of a sudden 3 more want to get on it later, then it's going to be first come, first serve, and they may never get on it because those 4 are going to keep that spot forever. So, I mean, it's kind of, you got to have a balance and act as far, okay, there's 9 now, only 3 want to participate. How many you want to leave open for future potential signs going on there?
Okay.
So I really think we should find out who wants to participate. That's the most important thing. We can go from there and then decide that. Other discussion or comments? Alderperson Hanson.
Yeah, Scott, the last meeting, or last time we discussed this, we talked about having maybe only 1 sign instead of identical signs on each side of the river. Is that still the direction we're looking at going, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Same locations?
Well, that's still to
Pardon?
be determined.
No, the location for the west side that we're potentially looking at,
Correct.
Not the same locations. It'd be right near Highway 41, correct?
Well, I mean, it could be one or the other or near Highway 41, depending on, where it would, we could put it when
But not the
any
park.
issues. Not the
He's saying
park.
same locations, not that, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Other questions or comments? So what we're doing here right now is we are approving the policy, and then you have direction based on what was stated by everyone else, correct?
Correct.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the Civic Group Welcome Plaque Policy.
I'll second.
Motion by me, seconded by Alderperson Ledmano, again, with the assumption that everything we talked about will be brought back at a future board meeting. Any additional discussion or comments? Seeing there is none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 3, consideration and possible action regarding maintenance along County PP. This is going to be Brian or Marty, who wants it? Oh, Brian, you win. You can take any of the spots up here, or wherever you want to go. Oh, a little thing that's there for Marty.
No, Brian's right behind
Oh,
it.
Brian.
So you just shove Marty away?
Yep.
And then Brian's there.
up too, Marty.
Oh, isn't that great? All right, they're both here. Who wants to summarize what we're going to discuss or talk about?
I guess I will. Is this thing on?
It
Yep.
is.
It is, okay. So throughout the summer, via C-Click Fix, there has been a few, it's been brought to my attention a few times about the long grass, noxious weeds issue along County PP. Pretty much what it comes down to is on the backside of the properties. So the properties are along Erie. The backside of the property, there's fences along, I believe, 4 properties. Beyond those fences is a sidewalk. Currently, we have a lawnmower drive down the sidewalk. They mow about a 4 or 5, 6 foot pass on each side of that sidewalk, and then that's all the maintenance that we do currently. Which then leaves about a 2 to 3 foot strip of grass that isn't being maintained by some of the property owners. So it's kind of some confusion on who was supposed to maintain this area. Some of the homeowners do and some don't. So what we are proposing is that we, city staff would take this over. We would mow up into the fence line, and then we'd also line trim that fence with the approval of the homeowners along that stretch. So it affects, I believe, 4 properties that are in question.
And so there is a map, we all can see it, I believe in our packets, correct, everyone? And when he's referencing, so people understand at home, C-Click Fix, there were some complaints regarding a neighbor or neighbors, and that's what's kind of gets us to this point. There's been attempts to get resolution, just hasn't worked. So as a unique fix, this is what was come up with. So questions, comments, anybody? Alderperson Carpenter.
So if I'm looking at this correctly, it starts right by that apartment building and heading north.
Correct, yep.
If I'm kind of putting this together.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And then, so everyone understands, we would need waiver release from
Yep.
all the property owners. Okay, so
Correct, yep.
we'd approve this if that's where we're going, and then it goes back to them. Okay, still can be scuttled. Other questions or comments?
Make a motion to approve?
I'll second it. Motion by Alderperson Hanson, seconded by me, to approve maintenance along County PP. Any additional questions or comments? Alderperson Essercon.
Approval with their,
Oh, approval with their yeah,
Recommendation, staff recommendation.
You have that as well, too. All right, thank you. Other questions or comments? Seeing there are none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. I'm not sure why I'm thanking you, Marty, but you did pop up there.
Trees are growing in it on the west side.
What are we on here right now? 4. Discuss public GIS map access of the city's water service line material inventory. This is going to Eric Z. Eric Ziglicki, what do we have for us?
if I could turn this thing on, can you hear me?
We can.
Awesome. Good evening, board. Thanks for having me. So this is just a discussion item. No action is required on this memo. Really, it's kind of an update from the memo that we brought to you about this program in January of 2023. Really, and it was going back a little farther, was a program that Bill Boyle, the former GIS person here at the city, and I started talking about back in 2021, 2022, when the lead service replacement program came out by the DNR, and the rules were being updated and changed, and they were requiring us to build a database and gather information on all the service lines in the city. Mostly it was initially focused on the residential areas of the city, which we have about over 7,600 connections or service lines to our water mains that we focused on. There's over 400 commercial and industrial connections to our service mains as well. And so we started out by working with Bill to build a platform through GIS to gather this information, a place to house all this information, and our staff were tasked with inputting a lot of data and a lot of man hours. I would probably gather hundreds, if not maybe thousands of hours were put into just building this platform to use, and we'll show you kind of the end product here today. And it was based on the knowledge that at some point we will be required as a municipality to to make our entire inventory available to the public, not just our customers, but to anyone that comes to the city of De Pere or anybody outside the city of De Pere. All the municipalities in the state of Wisconsin are required in some way, shape, or form to make their inventories available. You can do it in several different ways, but a lot of the communities that are our size, a little bit small, a little bit bigger, including Green Bay, and all the way up to Milwaukee, have mostly gone with the GIS platform to make this available to the customer. It just seems like the most expedient way to share our hard work and effort and things that we've done over the years to kind of build this program and to be the most transparent we can as a utility with our customers. Really we'll kind of get into the nuts and bolts of the program. I started talking with Kristen and Dan Teeters over at GIS about what we could do to kind of, I guess for a lack of a better word, display the map that we put together through GIS. And Esri, unbeknownst to me, but Dan worked really hard with building this kind of web page that we can affiliate with the city website itself and our water side of that city web page. And basically built this, what you're seeing on screen from the top, it's basically called the City of De Pere Lead Safe Community. It just kind of starts with an introduction and what the program is all about, why we're required to do what we're required to do through the EPA and through the DNR, which is our regulatory agency that oversees this project and this inventory. And so there's a place where when you scroll down through the page and Kristen's doing that, you can kind of see what a lead service line is all about. It talks about what the city's responsibility is and what the customer's responsibility is. Just to kind of we wanted to come from an approach where maybe folks don't really know what a service line even is, how their water gets to their house, what responsibility is theirs and what's responsibility is ours. So that just kind of gives a little overview. We grabbed the information and a really kind of good picture there from the DNR's webpage. You'll notice through this site here, that we linked back a lot to the DNR and to the EPA because they have such a thorough. If people really wanted to get into the weeds about where this program and where this is coming from, they can link right back to those federal and state agencies to kind of get even more insight if they really want to dig into to more of the background on it. And as Kristen scrolls down, we get to what we've been really working on here. And this is the GIS, I guess, platform, and where you can see all the little dots associated with each parcel or each address. This platform here is basically searchable by your address. So if you know what your address is, most people do. That's what we chose to be, the site identifier. You could identify it a couple different ways, but we chose the address because that's what most people are going to go off of. And so they can just easily punch their address in. It will take them to their address, and then they can click on the little icon. It's a round icon with a line split down the middle. And one side signifies the city side, and one side signifies the customer side or the resident side. And as Kristen's kind of showing kind of the pop-up that comes from clicking on that address, you can kind of see what the material of the service line is for the city side and what the material side is for the customer side. And then there's a status that goes along with it. If it happens to be galvanized or lead on either side of the service line, so either the customer side or the city side, it'll be really in need of replacement. So it'll be something that we'll have to address with the customer. And certainly, if we found some galvanized on the city side going through this program, that we will be actively working on to get replaced within the next year for sure. Those will be where we'll focus on replacing on our side. And then we'll work with the customer to, work with them on how we go about getting their side replaced and who might be able to do that. So we wanted to keep it fairly simple. We didn't really want to give a lot of information, but the address, if we have the age of the home, which we got, a lot of that information comes from the building inspection department who tracks all that information. So we were able to kind of port that information over to this page. And then a lot of the service line information is stuff that came from hours of digging through our copper cards for meters, our meter installation sheets, our cross-connection inspection sheets, our lateral cards that engineering has put together over the years. And then there's also just the old plans and notes from those street reconstructions back in the day. We actually went through a lot of the boxes down in the basement of the MSC to kind of dig up the plans and look through the notes to get this information that we see here. We've started out with, in your packet, roughly about 7,600, a little more than 7,600 service lines on the residential side is where we focused. We're down to about under 100 or so of the residential side where they're unknown, but then you add in about the 57 galvanized and the one partial lead service that we have. So we have roughly about 160, 170 that we will, focus on with those customers, to work with either getting more information from the unknowns or getting them replaced as far as lead and galvanized go. On the city side, we have about 1,300 to 1,400 unknowns. So as we go through time, our plan is to work with the engineering department when they come out with their CIP for replacing water mains and services, and get a lot of those records up to date. And if that's farther down the line, then we'll have to figure out another way. There are other equipment and different ways that you can kind of get an idea what that service line material is and then get it on our database. There is an update to the lead service line, or the lead and copper rule revision coming out from the EPA within they suspect by or anticipate by October 16th, which is our deadline to make this public and to certify our inventory to the DNR. And then after that, we have a 30 days to notify customers by November 15th, for all of those that have galvanized lead or unknowns, whether it's on the city side or the customer side. So potentially we could be sending out roughly 1,000 to 1,200 notices to customers to let them know where we're at with the program and what this information means on this web page and on their service line. So that's kind of a little bit of a overview of the program. I really just want to shout out to all the effort that went into doing this, all the way from Bill Boyle to Kristen and Dan to Dan Lindstrom, making this a priority to kind of get this all going and get this page finalized for publication to our website and to make it something that we could be proud of and that the customers and the residents of the city of De Pere could be proud of. I'm thankful to Jess and Jason and Kim for all their hours they put in out in the field and in the office trying to build this thing, and Grace and Betty and Amanda for taking all those probably roughly 1,000 phone calls they did from customers just to kind of get this ball rolling. Just realized that we had about 1,900 unknowns on the residential side after we went through all the records. So that's how many notices and customers interactions that we reached out to. So roughly about 1,800 of those since about January this year. So did a lot of work in the last 8-9 months. So kudos to all of them and big thanks from me. Any questions?
First of all, very well done. And I should add that we have Kristen Vincent right here from GIS. So that's the Kristen he's referring to. So the people at home know, and obviously some of you know as well, too. So Kristen, great job. Dan Teeters is on as well, too. So sorry, Dan, I will not forget you as well. So Dan Teeters is out there as well. So Dan and Kristen, yeoman's work on this. This is very, very impressive. And it states in here, I think, that it goes live-ish October 16th, I think. Is that right?
That's our goal. We have a deadline date to publish this, to make it available to the public by October 16th. And there's also a certification page and a spreadsheet that we're doing QA QC on that mirrors this map to make sure we have as much information in there, as up-to-date information as we have, that we can make available to the public and the DNR. Realize that this is a living, breathing document. This program, once it gets certified to the DNR, the day after, if we update data in there, it's basically obsolete, but they'll be recertified again annually, with a date to be determined. I think it may be July 1st next year, or it could coincide with our consumer competence report that is due by July 1st as well annually. And we will also have to mention, and we will mention this program in the CCR annually, so that the public, try to make this more aware, and also work with Andy to do social media posts and stuff like that to get the word out that this is available.
And it'll go on GIS's site, you think, or what?
No, this will actually be a part of the water
water.
page. Yep.
Okay.
And there is a link to the health department as a part of this page. I had a very good meeting with the health department this past week and met with Crystal and some of the staff over there, and they're very excited about this web page and this site as well. They feel that they can benefit from that, and we will partner with them and keeping them informed with the addresses and customers where we're going to send notices to. So just in case that they get phone calls over on their side of the house from residents of De Pere or outside of De Pere, hey, I've got a notice from the city that talks about, lead and copper and things with my service line, and sometimes that can be really scary for people. And we just want to make sure that they reach the right people in the city, and that we can, explain to them what the program is and how everything works.
Yeah, it's great we're getting in front of this. Questions, comments, anybody? Alderperson Carpenter.
So you said we have one lead service?
We do. We have one partial lead service up on 9th Street, and we actually found that during the 9th Street relay project, and we had Jossert working on that service line, and we were digging back a little farther from the curb box on the customer side than to make the connection with the new plastic, and we found partial lead. There was no lead in the house, and there initially was no lead at the curb box. But when we dug back a little more to make the connection, we found it. We took out as much as we could, but we just couldn't dig back any farther on the customer's property. And at that point, the person that was living there really didn't want to do the replacement at that time. So we'll be working with the customer there down the road. That is a sample site in the city, so we actively take lead and copper samples from that house every 3 years. And kudos to our program of adding orthophosphates to the water. We've never had an exceedance at that house. So that goes to show that our proactiveness of adding orthophosphates to the water that protects against any of the lead and copper or impurities from leaching into the drinking water is doing its job, because we pass our tests every 3 years with DNR and have had no issues. Yeah, so it's really
So
good.
then my other question is, this has all started over Michigan and everything else. All this stuff happened, and why are they into this galvanized, or what's the push to the galvanized now? Because the galvanized, besides being a lousy line, it still services people until it gets exposed to air, and then it'll start leaking.
So typically what you find is it's kind of construction data. So it really, the metamorphosis of service lines kind of went from lead to galvanized to copper and to plastic. So the theory is, or the idea behind it is that at one point when they went from lead, they went from galvanized. Whether the galvanized connects to lead that we can't see, possibly like the 9th Street scenario, or it was once connected to lead and maybe has residual in there with the galvanized. It's not the best metal. It's not the best for service line. So that's the idea behind getting that out of the system and removing it, is because of the possibility that was once connected to lead, or may still be connected to lead behind the scenes, and we just haven't exposed it, or hasn't been exposed on the customer side. So, or on the city side, to be frank.
Yeah.
Because we have 6 or 7 on our side too that will need to get removed.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Alderperson Hanson.
Yeah, amazing work by staff. Just to follow up on the mayor's question, so we have that dime system where you can add like the layers, so that won't be embedded in that. It'll be like a whole separate web page, or
It'll be right on this web page. This web page that we've been scrolling through will be loaded onto the city water page. So you'll be able to go right onto the water page and find this page on there. And then this map is actually embedded in the page itself. So when you scroll down from top to bottom, it kind of takes you through the beginning of what the program is and then what a service line is, and then it shows you the map. And it kind of gives you an idea. On the left side of the map, there is, if you click on there's a little information button on there, it actually gives you a little idea for the customer and anybody that really doesn't know how to utilize the map. It'll give you a little idea of what this map is all about and how to kind of, read the pop-up, if you will, of each service line. Yep.
awesome.
Thank you. Other questions or comments?
I see the one red one,
You see what?
the red one.
Oh, yeah, you can, right where it is? Yeah.
I know exactly where it is.
Anything else you want to add? Derek?
Um,
And we don't have any action here. This is discussion
No,
only, correct?
no.
Presentation.
It's just FYI for elected
Appreciate it.
officials and for the mayor, because once this gets published, there will be, I'm sure, questions by your constituents. Feel free to steer them my way if they have any questions as far as this program goes. I know that there will be, I'm anticipating that there will be some probably TV reporters that will want to get interviews and stories out with the communities up here as we get these service line inventories published to the communities. It's all the communities up here. We're all kind of getting ready to publish our inventories all at the same time. We got together and had a meeting this past week, and just to kind of make sure that our voice was very similar when we're talking to our customers, because our programs are all very similar. We're all under the same requirements by the DNR and EPA. So we really wanted to have a united voice when it comes to speaking with our customers, so that as folks move from one community to another, they're not hearing different messages at all about what these programs are and the transparency of them. So.
Very good. Thank you. Thanks for the heads up. We're glad we're now aware. And we'll look forward to the rollout. Kristen, again, thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Chris,
Eric.
for being here. And Dan, thank you for being online as well. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you, Dan. And then pass it on to everyone else as
Will
well,
do.
too.
Will do.
This
Thanks
is
so much.
Very,
Appreciate
very
it.
impressive. Extremely impressive. Thank you. Thanks.
Good night.
All right. Item 5. We're up to 5, people. Item 5, consideration and possible action on timeline for polycart storage enforcement. Tony, I think this is you, and you're out there somewhere.
All right. Good evening. So at the September 11th, 2023 Board of Public Works meeting, there was discussion on the timeline for the enforcement of the polycarts. Polycarts are currently being investigated by the police department and the community service officers. But we went from a 30-day inspection period down to a 15-day period before reinspection would occur. And ultimately we did 3 re-inspections, the third one being a certified letter being sent prior to any citations being issued. With the integration of C-Click-Fix, this allows residents that do enter a polycart complaint in the system, they have the ability to see the status of the complaint, and if a resident doesn't see any progress occurring over the time, they may become frustrated. It was discussed at the September 11, 2023 board to bring it back to review. After discussion, the board had decided to keep it at 15 days, but they did want to review it going forward. So I spoke with Captain Merstick of the Pere Police Department, and he is recommending amending this from 15 days to 7 days notice in between violations, which would be more consistent with the non-compliance of like the long grass complaints and other ordinance that they investigate. So staff's recommendation is, if the board pleases, to amend the inspection period from 15 days to 7 days, which ultimately may lead to a citation after the third violation, or 21 days potentially.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Alderperson Hanson.
Yeah, I strongly support this. I do think the current timeline is too long, and we do get constituents who continually check in, hasn't this been addressed yet? I think it also is more difficult too for staff to have to keep track of it for such a long period of time. I think give them 3 weeks, and if it's still not in compliance after 3 weeks, then take action. But
Sounds good. Again, we're prepared for this, though. I mean, there's going to be some upset people, but I'm for it as well too. My only concern is if someone is noticed and obviously they're not compliant, so we're going to say shame on them. But some people have a hardship of putting it someplace, and that's what we're going to experience. Now, this is going to probably get this out, I guess, but this isn't going to be pretty. I don't anticipate, and it's not going to be easy in some cases. So I guess we'll see. My assumption is people that weren't complying with 15, 15, and 15 may not change much with 7, 7, and 7, and you're still going to have non-compliance. That's just my gut, but I guess we'll see, won't we? Alderperson Ledman.
Is there any leniency if a property owner is trying to, I don't know who I'm supposed to direct my question to.
Oh, yeah, good question. To the TV
if they're actively trying to correct. Hi.
Talking to you, Tony.
Actively trying to correct the issue, but that requires, if you're going to put up a fence or something, it requires maybe skills that the homeowners don't have.
Or just money they may not have. So
or money that they may not have.
That's kind of what I was getting at.
Yeah.
So, Tony.
Yeah. Yes. So when we investigated it, we did work with residents or businesses to the point of if they were making an honest effort or they had an expectation date or the fencing company or whatever it was that couldn't make it to a certain time. What we were really trying to do is generate conversation and get them aware of the ordinance and try to gain voluntary compliance. So we did work with residents as long as they were actively working with us. I can pass that message on to the police department with the request, and I would imagine that they would be very much on board with doing the same thing as long as they're seeing some form of compliance or attempted. But I can't speak for them directly.
Okay.
And that's good by me. I mean, there should be something there. I mean, it could be hardship money-wise. You have to get money together to build a fence or whatever it is you have to do.
Right.
I'm okay with that.
So am I.
Okay, and you're okay with that as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Alderperson Carpenter.
The hard part about this is I have a constituent that moved in and he told me, so my neighbor comes and tells me I just moved in the neighborhood, can't have my polycarts out. Okay. Tells him again the second time. Third time, resource officer comes there. He says the worst part about it is the resource officer goes past this house, and this house has their garbage can out there, and nothing gets said. And that's where it gets irritating to people. This person just picks on that, and then that's how it is because it's complaint driven. I mean, that person's not going to go complain about, look over here or look over here. That's my frustrating part about a lot of this stuff is we have things that are against ordinances, but we look the other way unless we get a complaint. And now we have just click it, fix it, and it's just even more irritating to me because I got people that bring up things that somebody just moves in a neighborhood and now they're complaining about something else that's been like that for 30 years.
I mean, it's a fair question. We've talked about this as well, too. My assumption I would think we need a heck of a lot more staff to enforce if we would go to away from complaint-driven to compliance-driven. That's my assumption.
Right.
More than just a one.
And I'm not saying that. I just said that's where you get your frustration.
Understand. You are.
I'm with you. I'm not going to say we got to go over staffing.
Yeah.
But that's where you're going to get at your complaints is because, boy, oh boy, I can go over here, look over there. I can drive around in my district and start picking out tons of things, and that's not what I'm going to do. I want to live in the district and everything else, and that's what I want. Until
Totally
I move
understand.
away, I guess that's what it's going to be. But
Yeah, and we've gone round and round on this. You're 100% correct. Yep, I don't disagree with that. Other questions or comments? Alderperson Hanson.
Yeah, and just one other thing to note. Last year, we also amended the ordinance now where you're only not in compliance if it's visible from the front property line. It used to be along all sides, every side of the property line. So That does allow a little more accommodation for residents to put them in the backyard where they might not be visible in the front, especially if they're in the process of doing screening or something.
Other questions or comments? So we're okay to go, did we have a motion in a second?
No.
I believe, we did or did not? Who wants to make the motion?
Make a motion to approve.
I will second.
Motion by Alderperson Hanson, seconded by Alderperson Ledman. Additional discussion and or comments? All right, we'll give this a try. Possibly we didn't vote yet. All those in favor say aye.
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 Nay.
Opposed? Opposed? Nay.
Nay.
Motion carries with Alderperson Carpenter voting nay. Thank you. Thank you, Tony. I think you're done. I can't remember. We have you here
Yep.
for, okay.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, you too. Item 6.
Does that go to the council, Mayor, or is that?
I don't see a star next.
I don't see one.
Does this go to council?
believe it does.
I don't-
Part of the ordinance, it's like an
Okay.
policy.
Okay.
So the answer would be no. Where are we up next? 6, update on foundation drain disconnection program. Chase, this is you.
Yeah, so just want to give an update. We last met in June about the foundation drain disconnection program. At that meeting, we set forth the policy for mandating properties come 2025, where the staff will actively inspect televising videos, identify inflow and infiltration into our sewers, and then notify residents they're then mandated to disconnect foundation drains if they're found to be present and install sump pumps. We updated our policy to include that mandate language so we could get a letter out to residents, hoping to get an uptick in resident participation in our currently voluntary program. And that was indeed a success. From June to September, we've seen 300 more residents contact the city, go through scheduled preliminary inspections to find foundation drains, and a big uptick in people actually installing sump pumps and disconnecting those foundation drains. So in the field, we're still working with building inspection staff. We've scheduled out, there's a period, it was 5 properties a day for every day of the week for about a month, where we're actively going into homes, identifying foundation drains if they're present or not, and then giving our indications and recommendations on the next steps moving forward for those property owners. On the program side of things, we've now expended about $212,000 of the $341,000 in ARPA funds for the program. We're at about 62% of the allocated budget. If the trend continues that we've seen in August and September, we are going to be close to expending that full $341,000. September alone, we did 16 properties being reimbursed at a total of $52,000 total. And just today, I've done another 3 for October and today. So it's probably another close to 10 grand that we've expensed on top of this. And we're probably at like 71 total properties instead of the 68 I know in the memo. What we're seeing on the reimbursement side of things, the average reimbursement is still about $3,000 of the maximum $4,000. So we're not getting the impression things are being abused by residents or the contractors that are coming in to do the work. They're calling staff, the preliminary inspections are going well, and they're following our recommendations to disconnect these foundation drains where they are found to be present and install sump pumps. Looking ahead to 2025, staff's going to have to continue to review our televising videos that we have on file, identify sources of inflow and infiltration, and then schedule out about 125 properties for mandating sump pump installation and foundation drain disconnection for the new 50% participation program that'll start with our 2025 mandate. We've requested a budget of $200,000 per year to fund these sump pump installations and foundation drains disconnections moving forward. So we'll see how the budget process goes through that. And this reduction in budget also is reflected on the reduction in payback to the resident. We'll drop from $4,000 as a maximum reimbursement down to $2,500 as a maximum. So we're still forecasting about 100 properties per year.
1,000 pages.
So with that, that's our updates, and any questions or comments? Things have been fairly positive.
I'm asking Scott right now. It's in, isn't it? The budget's 1,000 pages. I know you requested it, but I'm pretty sure. Did you get there yet or not? I'm pretty sure I included it in. I'm pretty sure.
I didn't get that far yet.
Okay.
I'll
Getting
do
rid of
more
it.
reading tonight.
Did you read it? The draft?
No.
I'll do more
Well,
reading
if
tonight.
you didn't read it, it means it's not going to be in then. You had to read it.
Well, I read the important parts, and that's the engineering stuff.
And
It
you're all
was there.
stuck. You're all good. Okay, all right. That's good. That's good. Again, also very impressive with all this, and I've gotten more compliments regarding the program from a number of people that have participated and are very grateful for it. So, Questions or comments? And Chase, were you finished? I apologize.
Yeah, I'm finished. Just want to give an update. We've seen really
right.
good progress in the last 3 months and just want to share the good news with the board.
Great. And then ARPA funding wise, you said how much is left over?
We're at about $120,000 left over. I haven't tracked what I entered today, so probably 110 maybe as of.
My understanding is with ARPA, if you enter into contracts before the end of the year, you can still expend the money in 25.
In the nature of the game, I may not know. Like today, I receive the invoices and then I process them. So come December, I'm getting through these as they come in on a daily basis.
Okay, as we get closer, maybe you should connect with Pam and just make sure we have, an understanding where we are and where we should be at the end and what's legal and what's not legal. She's learning more in the last couple of weeks, so that's a good thing. I mean, This is all a good thing, yeah. Other questions or comments? Alderperson Hanson.
Yeah, Chase, you mentioned there is the possibility that we could run out of funds this year and have to pull it from the sewer fund. Just wondering if there's any concern with that or if it's in a good position to handle that.
I was doing about 1 reimbursement per day for the month of September. We'll continue to monitor it moving forward, and if there are concerns, we'll bring them forward. But right now, we're teetering on that line. September was a big month, so we'll see if that trend continues in October. Having done 3 today, that concern does still exist, but I won't know until we get closer and can forecast more accurately.
Mm-hmm.
Very good, thank you. Other questions?
You can be like the weatherman.
Not a question. Other questions or comments? Chase, thanks much. Again, very good. Yep. Very, very good program.
Good work, Chase.
We are then going out to item 7, discuss pond algae growth. Eric, this is you.
Yeah, I knew
First time we heard from
I knew I was up here for a reason.
Yeah, boy.
I think next
Good
time we
job,
should make
Chase.
everybody go last.
You did
Okay.
anyways.
So the purpose for this memo is just to provide an overall discussion about some algae growth in city ponds. But specifically, we're going to talk in a little more detail about Franklin and Front Street, which was a pond that was constructed last year, and really its first full year of operation this year, and it has had some significant algae growth. So just to give everybody a little background on our stormwater and why we do what we do, and why we do it is we are issued a permit from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources for stormwater discharge. For us, we have 3 different basins that are defined that we discharge to, and they are, and you've probably heard these before, but it's always good to revisit, the Ashwaubenon Creek, Lower Fox River, and the East River. And each of these basins we have a different requirement to meet for total suspended solids and total phosphorus reduction. And this applies throughout the state, but we have 3 that specifically apply to us. Of these basins, we are meeting our total phosphorus and total suspended solids reductions for the East River and Ashwaubenon Creek, but for the Lower Fox, we have much more stringent requirements, and we are not meeting the requirements for that basin. Now, one of the primary techniques we've been using through the years to treat stormwater is ponds, and we've been constructing ponds since the 1990s. And in your packet, I did give you a couple different samples of some older ponds, newer ponds, some with algae growth, some without, just to give you an overview. Now, as I mentioned, we received a grant in 2021 for stormwater pond off of Franklin and Front Street, adjacent to the Fox River. This pond was completed in 2023. This pond was important for us for several reasons. First of which, we had a vacant parcel that was in the Lower Fox Basin. And again, the Lower Fox Basin is where we are not meeting our TSS and total phosphorus reductions. So it provided us an opportunity to build a pond in an area that was totally developed on our property and treat stormwater. So that was a big deal. And as I mentioned, this was a pond now that collected water right before it gets to the Fox River. And as we all are aware, the Fox River is one of those waterways that needs treatment. So it was a big deal for that. Now, as I indicated, this was the first year of operation, and we did have algae growth, and we provided 2 photos in your packet so you could see. Now, from a pond standpoint, we do inspect our ponds on a regular basis for things such as erosion, woody vegetation, phragmites, rodents, dumping of debris and clippings, grass clippings from adjacent property owners. And we also have a program now to check sediment depths for when we need to clean our ponds. And then as we identify things that need to be fixed, we put them on a list, and then we go through and do our maintenance. Now, algae growth. We don't have a specific program per se for algae growth. But algae growth is caused by nutrient-rich water, which has a lot of phosphorus and nitrogen, particularly during the warmer summer months in our ponds. As the temperatures decrease through the year after peak summer, the algae growth will decline. The pond that has the issues right now, the algae has declined since the peak of summer. Now, what are some of the sources of algae growth and the nutrients reaching our ponds? So, one of the big ones, pet and animal waste. Two of the biggest contributors, dogs and geese. Lawn and garden fertilizers. Again, biggest contributors, residential areas in the city and overuse of fertilizer. Grass clippings. People disposing of grass clippings improperly or blowing their grass clippings in the street. And then we have leaves, which occur, annually each fall, which we're coming up on, one of Tony's favorite times of the year, leaf pickup. And, people stockpiling them in the roads. They naturally blow on the roads, and then they get into our ponds, and over time the sediment builds up. So now, for some of these things, we do things right now to try to educate people. From a pet and animal waste for dogs. We put information, Betty posts information on our social media, working with Andrew on a regular basis. We also have a handout, which is in your packet, that we give pet owners when they come in for a dog license. So, we are trying to make steps and educate people. From a goose standpoint, where it's possible, we are encouraging vegetation to grow around our ponds. Geese love turf grass. They can eat it, and they can see any predator coming their way. So when the predator comes, they hop in the pond, life is good, or they fly away. So if we can minimize turf grass, then hopefully that'll at least minimize a little bit the number of geese in our ponds, because geese love our ponds, and they use the facilities in our ponds, which is a nutrient source. So we are actively working on maintaining more of a natural landscape around our ponds. Lawn and garden fertilizers. So again, we have an educational campaign that Betty posts on a regular basis. If any of you have been to my public information meetings for construction projects, I get a little information at the end of that, just to take the opportunity to remind people, especially since our construction meetings are in early winter and grass season is right around the corner. We also talk about grass clippings with social media. On our ponds, when we inspect ponds and people are dumping, we send them a letter and give them a certain number of days to get those grass clippings off. If they don't take the grass clippings off, then we will take the grass clippings out and we will send them an invoice. And then we also provide information as to why we don't want the grass clippings dumped by our ponds. And then leaves, again, educational resources. And a big thing is, I didn't put it in here, but Tony and our street department does an excellent job with leaf pickup around the city. So that encourages people, since they know the leaves are picked up on a regular basis, to put them in the terrace. We don't want people putting their leaves in the street, because when it rains, that pulls all the nutrients out. So, hats off to our street department for the excellent job they do. And our residents are really, really good about putting their leaves on the terrace. So those are some of the things we have been doing to try to educate people. And, I guess it's a little more of a passive approach, but we are working on our stormwater through education. And then I also provided in your packet, just so you can see some of the growth of the algae at various ponds in the city. There are some ponds in your packet, Cross Creek Circle, that had quite a bit of algae growth. It's an older pond, it's a smaller pond, it's a residential pond. We also have some older ponds that didn't have a lot of growth. You can look at the ponds by the Southwest Business Park. You can have the lower section by Honeysuckle, which had a lot of growth. You go upstream a little ways, there isn't a lot of growth. And then we had some recently constructed ponds off of Matthew. Minimal, very minimal algae growth. We have the pond off of Optimist. You'll see a little bit of algae growth. That was built several years ago, not a lot. So there's a lot of different factors when it comes to algae growth. The type of land use, the age of the pond, the design of the pond, things like that. So I wanted to just give you an idea of some of the things that are going on with our ponds. Now, specifically with the Franklin and Front Street ponds, and I believe we have some residents here. This is its first year of treatment. We really didn't anticipate we were going to have algae growth like that. So on the bad side, we've got significant algae growth. Now, with that being said, it is showing the importance of this pond. This pond is treating phosphorus and nitrogen. That water was going directly to the Fox River without treatment prior to this pond being built. So it is a very important pond, not only from our permitting perspective, but also just to treat the water, which is something we need to do. So some of the things we are working on around this pond, we mowed it once this year, but we are going to minimize mowings around this pond. Some of the residents indicated there were geese using the pond at the beginning of the year. We really don't want geese using the ponds. We can't stop it, but we'd like to minimize it. We are going to put out an educational campaign specifically to the property owners in this drainage basin to try to reinforce the need to not over-fertilize. If you've overspread your fertilizer, clean it up off the street. What to do with your grass clippings, and we'll do it periodically through the year. Betty's already created a property owner list, and we've been working on that to send that out, particularly next year as we roll into the growing season. So again, try to minimize the number of nutrients that get into the water. We also did modify the riprap of the outfall this summer because the outfall had a lot of riprap in it that was catching a lot of debris. The water could still get through. So, trying to minimize it. Do I think that'll have a direct impact of washing the blue-green algae out? No. Hopefully it'll help a little bit. But so we are trying steps to try to minimize that. Now, with that being said, we have reached out, sent a letter to the DNR, one of the reps over there, he's currently out. We've talked to our consultant a little bit about what some of the ideas might be, and they're going to investigate and give us some ideas. And then, if we can bring that back to have a general discussion. Now, with that being said, really, whatever we come up with here is something that we may consider on all ponds. The DNR just put on a discussion about pond maintenance and some of the things. And again, we're doing the steps we're supposed to be doing. But from an algae perspective, they talked about some of the big things to do education. The DNR had a policy years ago where they, at one time, were okay with aerators. Then they don't want aerators, and right now they're not really sure if they want aerators, but if they do get aerators, they want to make sure you shut them off during rain events because that can stir up the sediment, because we want the sediment to settle out. The purpose of these ponds is to treat the water but also settle the material out. And that's why each of our ponds have about 2 feet of storage on the bottom, and that's why we do that sediment survey in the winter, particularly if we ever get a really good winter with ice. The past couple haven't been real good for that. But anyway, our ponds are built around 5 feet deep with 2 feet of storage on the bottom for sediment. So, when you're resuspending the water, you're resuspending solids, particularly clay particles, which is something we have a lot of here, and other nutrients. So, we do have to do some investigation. This may be a little bit of time to figure out what we want to do with this pond or ponds in general. The algae growth is unsightly. The pond is doing its purpose of treating water. And then really that's where we stand right now.
Okay. Questions or comments? Alderperson Carpenter.
Yes, Eric, when you go to H on this item here and show the map and where the area that the pond takes in from.
Yes.
So where are their sampling sites into the Fox River? Is one of these close to this pond, when they're doing their, I'm just trying to ask, where's the DNR sampling that could help you say, yes, this is really, the pond looks terrible, but now our results over here are down by this number?
Good question, and I don't know where their sampling sites are. I know GBMSD has done a lot of sampling in the Fox River and the Lower Bay, and some of that is used. And that's why they take a look at breaking it out by various basins. Like you've got the Ashwaubenon Creek, the Lower Fox, and the East River. And then they even break the segments out, like the Lower Fox has a segment for discharges below the dam and discharges above the dam and all those things, but I don't know where they're sampling are.
This shows right where it's all coming from. So this pond is discharging into the Fox River right there. That would be you can't make them tell them where to take their samples, but if you could have each basin where they're kind of getting discharged. And I don't know if some basins connect into the next basin going to the Fox River or not. I don't understand.
Well, what they've done is, so really, if your storm sewer system is a contributor to the lower Fox, generally it discharges to the lower Fox.
Right.
That's how they tried to separate it. So that way you're not trying to take into account, oh, I got the East River, which then ties into the lower Fox, which then ties into the lower Bay. They broke them out by where your discharge is going to try to minimize that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's why I'm just saying, if a person had numbers, I mean, if you could somehow knew numbers, I mean, residents aren't gonna like it looks that way, but you might be a little happier if you knew it was doing something. You know what I mean? Not to say that's what you want, you might look for solutions, but, I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. Is,
Yeah, you know, we're obviously the residents aren't happy with the blue-green algae, and, you know, nobody likes the look of it. But on the pro side is at least it is doing something, or it should be doing something, because it's definitely taking phosphorus and nitrogen out of the water. The only thing is there some type of solution that, you know, isn't cost prohibitive? Maybe there's a planting type solution. You know, I don't know. This was an odd summer where I think there was a little more algae growth in general because we had some rains right at the beginning of the summer. And you would think rains are good. It's going to flush that out. Well, what the rains do is they bring more nutrients in. And then you're getting those nutrients at the warmest time of the year. And, you know, and that is evident because it was really bad in July, June, end of June, July, August, and now it's better, you know, because it's a seasonal thing with temperatures.
and that is true. I mean, it's not just here in Deep here. I mean, there's other communities that I've observed their ponds are other years didn't look as bad as they look this year.
Yeah.
It's just the water.
Because we had a lot of rain. In fact, the beginning of the year, everybody was concerned, like the Met was getting really high flows this year, GBMSD. The ground was saturated. There was a lot of I&I going on at the wastewater treatment plants. But now, obviously, things have dried out significantly. But we had a lot of rain at the beginning of the year.
I'd be curious to see what the DNR states as well, too. Because you said they're going to talk about this and might have some solutions.
Yeah, I reached out to because I just attended a webinar where they talked about stormwater management and ponds specifically.
Yeah.
And then I had thrown a message in the chat about, hey, we have this brand new pond, and I got a response of, yeah, you know, really it's about education, and, you know, we're not excited about aeration. But I sent a specific email out, but he's on vacation now for about 2 weeks. And then I also reached out to our consultant, REL, to take a look at this pond specifically, because they helped us design it and see if they have any recommendations. Sure. Sometimes there are certain types of plantings you can do around the edge of the pond that maybe help some of the growth. And if that's the case, hey, that might be great, you know. Yeah. We don't have a lot of emergent vegetation coming out of the pond right now, and we build a safety shelf around it. And a lot of times that's where you see cattails and other things growing, and a lot of times they'll come in on their own. Excuse me. But right now we don't. So I thought I'd reach out to them to see what they have to say.
Great. Now, I do know, really quick, do you want to go first?
Oh, I was just going to ask if that type of natural vegetation, we're not discouraging that, right? We want that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we do.
Sorry, go ahead.
No problem. I do know there's a few people here that, did you want to talk it out or just get information?
You know, when you talk about it and the neighbors not enjoying what's going on.
I'll make a motion to open.
I'm gonna have to do something different. So we have a motion to open by Alderperson Carpenter, seconded by me. I was waiting for a few more seconds. I realized, that's not gonna work. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. What we're gonna have you do is go to the table right there. Yep, exactly. Give us your name and address, and then you can speak freely. Government's weird that way. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
My name's Tony Pizzo. I live at 602 North Front Street. And, you know, we've worked with the department on doing the pond and all that. We lived in the paint shaker for a while when they did the construction, because it was all right behind the house. And that was a lot of fun. Looking at the pond, everything that Erica said is true. We went through the really bad time period in the summertime where the algae was so thick, it looked like you could walk across it. You know, and so when I look at other ponds around the city, because when you first came and talked with us, you said, oh, it's going to be a lot like the pond down by the Black Honey Hatchery. It'll be nice, and you know, ducks will be there. It'll be, and honestly, in the spring, that's what it started looking like. because the water was fairly clean, on the surface, and we had wildlife and all of that. And then as the summer progressed, it got worse and worse and worse. And it wasn't, it got so thick that we were really concerned about, what was going to happen when it started dying off and rotting, and then we would have the smell and all that. And then we had that really big rain, remember, this summer? And at that point, you guys had done the work with the stone, and it actually did wash quite a bit of it out. And, and so but I don't think we can expect a torrential rain to come and keep the pond clean enough to have it so that it's enjoyable. It's at the entry to the park in town, the Voyager Park. So one of the things that happened, and I think, one of your older people is a runner, kept going by and going, what is this that is here? Because it was a horrible looking thing to do. I mean, there's other issues with ponds when they go bad, but it just looked bad. And, given the fact that I look out my back windows every day and see it, I obviously have a personal interest in having it work. But as we look at solutions for this, because there are solutions. I mean, if you, I'm retired, so what else do I have to do but research? So you spend a lot of time on finding out about how ponds are handled and what the DNR says. And as I know more about ponds and pump systems than I ever wanted to know in my life. But when you look at it, we have an opportunity to not just do something to meet a requirement. The DNR says that we have to do this for the basin. Why not look at doing something here that will beautify the town? If we look at doing things so that it's a pretty space, so that when people are running on the trail or when they're walking through and they're coming, we want to build up our downtown. It's not that far from downtown. It's right outside this beautiful park that we live so close to. Why not look at doing things with it so it's actually attractive? And so rather than having it be something that you want to not look at when you go by, but you go, oh, isn't that pretty? And there are ponds in the city that have little fountain things going and all that, and people go by and it makes them happy. I understand the need for what we're doing, and I love the fact that we're doing something to improve the water that goes into the river. We all live here. We want to have a healthy environment for us and our kids. Why not do something so that the water that does wind up flowing into the river is actually clean? We can aerate the water. We can make it so it's healthier going in. It'll be better for the fish population. It'll be better for everyone there. I love the things that you sent us about, trying to keep the water clean. I've chased more geese in the last year than I have in my entire life.
Oh, we don't need dogs then. All right.
Well, I had
hired.
dogs. Unfortunately, they died. But,
I'm sorry.
that was unfortunate. But anyway, we chase the geese and we mulch the grass and we do all the things there. And the neighbors have been trying to, we were told there's going to be all these wildflowers and all these things. None of that stuff has come out. And I don't know if you've done anything to change the water level. The water level is very low right now, but that would be my plea. I understand the need for the pond. And when it's done well, I think it'll be a real positive addition to the community. That's what I ask that you look at. Don't just slap something on there and say, oh, we can throw a bunch of algicide in there. Because that is the solution, right? I mean, you can get the algicide, throw it in there, and then scrape off the stuff, and every so often go in there and do that. You have an opportunity to add to the community, to add something nice to the entrance to the park. That's what I would ask. Think beyond just solving the problems of some guy coming to complain about how it stinks in his backyard. Think about how we can do something so that this becomes a positive part of our community. And you've been great to work with. I have nothing bad to say about the department or any of the work they've done. It's a tough job, and you're trying to do something with limited resources, limited land to do that on. I understand all that, but let's try to do it right. That would be my request.
Thank you. Thank you for your observations. And just so you know, it's here because we are concerned about it as well,
Yeah,
too. So,
I know.
and the good thing is, and I'm glad you had said all that, and it's very, very good. And you also, you offered some solutions as well. So we're gonna get updates back again regarding this as well, too.
Yeah,
Because
we'll
want
bring
to
it back and
succeed
we can talk about, and again, the one thing is, the ponds that have aerators really aren't our ponds, they're other people's. We don't have any aerators in our ponds right now.
Right.
And so, it's all, what does the DNR say? And again, from like a staff perspective, our policy is right now is to treat each pond the same. We want to make them functional and, balance the look and make them good. Whatever we want to do here is something we'd probably have to consider with other ponds that start to experience algae growth unless there's other solutions. And again, some ponds are great.
Yeah.
Some ponds you don't have any algae growth.
It may be
Other ponds,
all of that.
and I could see, and again, this caught us off guard. I could see a lot of our older ponds through time, they get algae growth. And there's one that's got algae growth over by Southwest Park, but it's one that we're going to clean the sediment out of. We did a sediment check, and it's around 2 feet deep in some areas, and we've got it bid out. I mean, we've got the contractor, so this winter that's going to be cleaned. So we didn't expect this. So each pond is different, but anyway.
So we will continue to get updates
Yeah.
as we move forward, just so they're aware of it and we are as well too, and you'll know when it happens. Alderperson, by the
I
way,
have
I'll
two
make.
questions. I'll make a motion to go back to regular
Hey,
order.
I was just going to do that.
And then we'll move on.
And I'll second that, second by so motion by Alderperson Carpenter, second by Alderperson Levina, to go back to regular session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. That was your first one. Now your second one.
So Eric, like you said, and places are like in the industrial park, where it's in, you see, we have ponds on a lot of their property, some of these places. They were mandated to put the ponds on their property, am I correct?
Some are, some aren't. It all depends on the pond. It's a case by case. So,
Because there's right on American, that one that I can't think of the name of the company that has that irrigator in it all the time.
Georgia Pacifics?
and I don't
No,
know, I would
it's
have to
not-
go back to the permit, because right now their stormwater goes through our pond over on, we built that pond off of
Yeah, there's one in front of.
Shirring and
yeah, I know what you're
41.
talking.
I can't think of the name of the company.
Yeah,
It's
and
in
then-
their it's in the older section
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
American.
Yeah, so I'd have to go back and see if they needed it or they built it for,
Aesthetics.
But again, and some of it will have to do with what the DNR, and for us, like a site like this, then we would have to, and again, we'd have to talk about it from a policy perspective. Is aerators or something we're gonna do, or are they gonna be something we do in certain locations? Because we will have to run power, get a meter, and then, depending on what the DNR says, because at that webinar, the DNR said, hey, if someone, right now our policy is, we're not sure, but if an aerator was put in, you'd have to be able to shut it off during a rain event, because the rain comes in, all that sediment's coming, they didn't want things stirred up. I'll find out more.
Good.
But yeah, a lot of right now, if someone's putting in a pond for stormwater purposes, us or even them, we're not approving aerators in them, because I don't know
That's
that.
what my
yeah.
question was.
So that's what we'd have to figure out. That could be a solution. It could be one of the tools in the toolbox, and we'll find out
I mean,
more.
that big pond that runs along American and everything else out there has got a lot more stuff in it this year than.
Yeah, it did. There were
I'm
certain
just saying
ponds
you-
that were a little worse this year, that were worse than in the past. And we had all that rain, and it loaded a lot of
Definitely is
nutrients.
Yeah, we're just saying the Fox, was a little algae and green this year, and so, well, the Bay obviously is that we see a lot of, so that's not encouraging by any stretch. Alderperson Ledmano.
That would be my question, because Tony spoke to how we had a really big rain event and it washed all of the algae away. Do we want that in the river? Because I can't imagine that's
And I
good.
can ask that question, but that occurred maybe at the end of the year. I'll find out because we had the big rain at the end of the year. It was dry for a while, and then the algae was kind of sitting there, and then that big rain came through. I'll ask those questions.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
And actually, one more thing, just,
Go ahead.
moving forward with the policy, couldn't we make it complaint-based like we do everything else? If we get complaints about the algae, then we deal at a pond, then we deal with it. If we don't get complaints, then we leave it.
Well, and you could do that, but I think whatever solution you come up with, you need to consider that you could get a lot of complaints. It's kind of like our RFBs, rapid rectangular flashing beacons.
Sure.
They're a wonderful tool, and we put the policy in place. And then once we put them out there, we got a lot of requests through the years, but luckily we have a policy to guide us. So that's just what we got to keep in mind. If you put one out, you're going to get more requests because people like them.
Then maybe you use like a proximity to residential neighborhoods.
Maybe you do. And maybe there's some input from the DNR. I
Okay,
don't know.
I'll stop.
But
Yeah,
in the meantime,
absolutely.
You're on it.
In the meantime, we already are responding to the pond, so.
Yeah, we're taking a look at it. We've done a couple things. We will still do our educational campaign specifically for this one because it was a lot worse
Yeah.
than what we thought for the basin. And there is a significant amount of residential development in this area, existing residential, so we'll send them letters and see what we can do.
Alderperson Carpenter.
Yes, isn't the DNR going to regulate quite a bit of this, though?
I think so.
Some-
Well, yeah,
to
they're
some
gonna
degree.
they're gonna have some regulation, like can you do, a chemical treatment, and if so, what is it? Kind of even like our Phragmites. When we treat our Phragmites, our contractor is permitted through the DNR, has certain things they can do. They have trainings, so it'll be the same thing for this. We can't just do anything we want in a stormwater pond, and then because whatever we do is going out to the river.
Yeah, that was my
Yes.
point. The DNR is going to be deeply involved in any matter.
Yeah. Can we do one meeting without mentioning Phragmites?
I love it.
No.
Sorry.
We literally can't, can we?
It's just a fun word to say.
Yeah, really fun. Other questions or comments? Alderperson Hanson.
Yeah, and speaking to the Parks Director, he said really the only effective tool they've had to try to combat geese is the dog patrol or geese patrol program, where you have the dogs chase the geese and then hopefully it deters them from coming back. So maybe look at expanding that to the ponds as well, but I know it's really dependent on volunteers you can get, and I'm not quite sure where the Parks Department is right now with that.
Not very many is what she's stating.
Okay.
So,
But something definitely to keep in mind. Even in particularly since it's along the Fox River, and for those of you who have ever gone out on the Fox River Trail early in the morning, in the summer, before other people, it's full of geese, certain sections. So it would be good in general.
That would.
yeah. All right, other questions or comments? So again, working towards some type of solution, so let's keep going that way. Anything else from anybody? Thank you. Thank you for coming
Thank
in.
you.
All right, and you'll be informed as we go forward as well, too. Thank you very much. Up next, we have item 8, consideration and possible action on city engineer parking and traffic recommendation. Eric?
All right, so when it rains, it pours. I'm back for more. Okay. So I'll go through each item here on the recommendations. I think my dime timed out.
We just have two. No, wait.
Sorry.
Right.
I was going to pop some up so we could see it,
sounds
but,
like 50 up.
so the first item is to do some parking restrictions on Brookline, Lansdowne, and Vin Scully. This is the new subdivision being built off of Lost Dolphin Road. The streets are set up 28 foot face of curb to face of curb to restrict parking on one side, and that's based on input from the developers. We did 60-foot right-of-way, narrower streets, which saved them money and reduced the amount of stormwater runoff we have. So it's a win-win. But what we've been doing on these new subdivisions, not necessarily existing streets, but the new subdivisions, we've been restricting them when the development occurs, particularly with home building, because we get home builders building on both sides and you can't get through. So we are recommending restricting parking on Brookline Avenue on the north and west because the street loops around. On Lansdowne on the south and west, again, this street loops around, so it's got different quadrants in the different directions. However, on Vin Scully is the really narrow street that connects Lansdowne and Brookline, where they come together with Lost Dolphin Road, so it's only a one short lot distance in, and we're recommending to restrict parking on both sides. Both lots that are impacted by this restriction have frontage on an adjacent side road, so they still will be able to park near their lots. So that's the recommendation from Parking and Traffic.
Questions on that one?
Just that I like the name Vin Scully Lane.
Know it. How does that get?
Now we
How does
need
that
the Bob
get through?
Euchre Lane.
How's that get through in this area? Amazing. Let's go to number 2. Yeah,
Okay, number 2 is really just an update of our ordinance. Now that we have gotten Lawrence Drive reconstructed from Shering Road to 500 feet south of Fortune, we have added the bicycle lane. Our ordinance in the past took us from Daytona Speedway up to Fortune. Now we've got the bike lane from Fortune all the way up to Shering, so we're just updating the ordinance to reflect the addition of the bike lane.
Very good. Thank you. Questions, comments on the second one? And we need a recommendation to approve these recommendations? Or no?
Yeah, make a
motion?
motion to approve both recommendations.
I'll second.
Motion by Alderperson Hanson, seconded by Alderperson Essercon. Additional discussion or comments? Seeing there are none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 9, discuss city engineer recommendation on no action parking and traffic discussion items. Eric.
Okay, so the first item is we had a request to restrict parking in the 300 block of South Huron, and there's a parking restriction on one side already, but to take the other side and change it to a 2-hour parking restriction. Now, Huron is a 24-foot face-to-curb to face-to-curb, so it is narrower than the 28-foot that we just talked about. However, in these older streets, we have not been going out and enforcing our current policy because many of these lots, if we said no parking, have no other options because they have frontage off an alley, so they need parking in front of the property. So we have not been enforcing that. Currently, in our ordinance, we do not have a 2-hour parking restriction. And really, this was kind of a one complaint issue, and we didn't see the need to restrict parking on this residential street for a 2-hour or even a 3-hour perspective. So we're recommending, we feel there's no action warranted.
Very good, thank you. Questions on that one? Okay.
Next, we have a request for permit parking on streets near the fairgrounds, particularly during, obviously, fairground activities. That's the issue. So right now, we don't have a permit process in place for on-street parking. And really, parking permits are really, really difficult to administer. How do we control who has the permit? How do we control if the person moves that we get the permit back? And so we're not in favor of implementing a permit policy for parking near the fairgrounds. And the issue, just so everybody knows, is particularly those cul-de-sac streets.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Questions, comments on that one? Next one.
Okay. Next, I have some yield signs, yield or stop signs. Both of them are T intersection locations. And so the first one is near the subdivision we just talked about. It's where Prairie Flower Lane, Meadow Rose Lane, and Crossgate Lane come together. Really, it's a T intersection of local streets. Even though there's kind of a bend where the one street comes in, to me, it's pretty clear. I've driven it. I don't think there's any need for a yield or a stop sign with the T intersection. I don't know if there's any questions on that.
Nope.
The next one is to consider a stop or yield sign at Thoroughbred Lane and Saddlebrook. Again, 2 low-volume streets. We didn't feel a yield sign was warranted.
Very good.
And the third one is someone wanted a no-engine braking sign at Southbridge and Lawrence. The only place we really put, the only place we put no engine brake signs in the city is at, and the dots represent the locations, it's the entrances into the city at truck routes. We don't put them internally, so we're not in favor of putting a sign here. And I just found out today that the engine braking is due to the DOT trucks, and so Tony reached out to the DOT to talk to their truck drivers.
Very good. Well, then that was resolved.
So hopefully that'll help.
Great.
And then I am still working on the 3 items below. We've been really busy with construction season, but I will be bringing these forward.
Actually, the one regarding, I'll just say this quickly, Southbridge and Lawrence Drive, we had the meeting at, what school, Heritage? No. Altmeyer, regarding the Southbridge connector. Alderperson Hanson was there as well, too. And a couple people did mention that to me when I was there, and I said, that's well and good if you have concerns about the construction, all that stuff. But you have to email the office or you have to connect with, I told certain staff. I'm not sure they did. So if anyone's listening out there, I did tell them to reach out to my office and or someone, and I think I referenced one of you two guys, or Brown County, because they're all there at that event. So, but that was one of the concerns that came up. So that's good.
And knowing that it is, if it does remain a problem, and the DOT doesn't rectify it, we can talk to the PD because they can issue tickets.
Great.
And if they know, the PD doesn't want to sit around and wait forever and ever and ever. But when they're hauling in a whole bunch of fill, if we know who the perpetrator is, we can try to catch them.
Yep. Sounds good. Thank you. Sorry about that. That's it for that, right?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Then item 10, consideration and possible action on 2024-2025 sidewalk snow and ice removal rates. Scott.
So this is an annual thing that comes before the board typically in this time of year. These rates that the board approve are rates we would charge the property owner if they fail to remove snow and ice during the winter seasons. This is complaint driven, so typically what happens is somebody doesn't keep their sidewalks clean, we go to inspect, and then we go out and do the removal, and then we charge accordingly. What you have is unit cost based on a 90-foot lot, one strictly for snow removal, one with compacted snow and ice, This year, actually, the rates went down a little bit because typically when I figure in the cost, our city forester had retired, so with our new street and superintendent, his wages were lower, so which resulted in a lower cost. Give an idea for those listening out there, the unit cost from 24 was $1.18. We went down to $1.13. That's a linear foot. So a 90-foot lot would actually cost $101.70 if we were to do the snow removal. The compacted snow and ice was $1.83 a linear foot, went down to $1.79. So then basically what that is, a 90-foot lot is $161.10. And you may ask, well, why is it so much more for the snow, compacted snow and ice removal? It's the fact we have to go out there a couple times to, to remove the snow and ice. In the past, we do have a minimum charge per lot. It's $80. It's been $80 since 2021. Typically, if we have a lot that's a small lot, in your older neighborhoods, say a 50-foot lot, that's when we would have a minimum charge. So staff is recommending the above-mentioned rates be approved.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Alderperson Carpenter.
Well, it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, equipment operator is only a half hour on the one, and it's an hour for the other one. You know what I mean? And I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alderperson Carpenter, second by Alderperson Ledman. Additional discussion or comments? Seeing there is none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 11, consideration and possible action on draft policy for full sanitary lateral replacement program.
All right, we saved the best for last. I'm going to read every line
No,
verbatim.
you're not. No, you're not.
Okay, anyway. All seriousness, so this is an item we brought to the board in August.
Oh, that's right.
And I did go through and really kind of summarize some of the same information from the August meeting, August presentation. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, instead of re-going through everything, I am just going to jump down and I'll talk through the policy specifics and then and interject a little bit.
Right, we didn't have.
But with that being said, this has been sent to the city attorney, so we're recommending approval to this draft contingent on if he has any recommendations or comments from a ordinance perspective. And so we would take it from there. But again, the thing I would say is, we've done a lot of different steps this past year for our I&I situation. Chase talked about the foundation drain policy program. We started implementing smoke testing really this year. And this is kind of the final piece of the puzzle to get people to replace their laterals. And then, we're really doing everything we need to do to address I&I with the inaction of this piece of the puzzle. So it is exciting for us to take this next step. So I'm going to jump to the policy and talk through the policy specifics. And it's been broken out like we talked about at the last meeting. The city-led projects, and then the private lateral replacement for someone who needs to repair a lateral outside of a city project. So what we're recommending for city-led projects is very similar to this year. We would offer 100% funding of eligible expenses. Eligible expenses, the cost for pipe bursting lining, repairing a concrete floor, and then excavation out in the roadway. The cost to restore a finished basement would not be included, walls, floors, etc., along with other items such as backflow preventers. If someone has basement piping that needs to be moved, plumbing, a water softener, anything like that, that would not be eligible for reimbursement. We'll just do that. If a sump basin installation will be completed by the city if it's found through pre-televising that the foundation drain is connected to the lateral. So what that means is the lateral is tied in, the foundation drain is tied into the sanitary lateral. We would just put the pit in there since we're opening everything up already, and that's all we would do. But then the cost for the sump pump itself and the pipe to discharge out the house would be eligible through Chase's program for a 50% match, and we would talk to the property owner about that. And then all property owners would be notified of this program and given the option to voluntarily participate. So we're not mandating participation if we're out there already replacing the laterals, just like we did this year. We offered people for a volunteer if you wanted to do it. If you didn't want to do it because you had a finished basement or whatever, you didn't have to, so it would be voluntary. And then the cost for this part of the program would be included in the capital cost for the project because it costs us a little bit more, but not a ton more. So, so that's the city-led portion of the project and the program. Now, if it's a private lateral replacement, meaning someone needs to replace their lateral outside of a city project, the entire length of the lateral is to be replaced by the property owner with a city-approved method. And under this program, we're recommending pipe bursting or lining. Why pipe bursting or lining? Because we can get a brand new pipe from our main all the way into the house. We talked a little bit of lining at the last meeting. It's around $100 a foot from what I talked to at one of the contractors. There's a couple more I should probably follow up with, but that's comparable to pipe bursting. But again, it gets us a new pipe all the way in. So that was something, there was a question at the last meeting. Property owners will need to contact the city to obtain proper permits prior to commencing the work so that we can review it and all be on board. For privately led programs, if they're going to replace the entire lateral, they'd be eligible for a 50% reimbursement up to a $6,000 project cost, meaning we would reimburse up to $3,000. Similar to the city-led program, eligible expenses will be the cost for the pipe lining or bursting, repair of the concrete floor, the cost to restore finished basements, walls, floors, etc., and other installations such as backflow preventers, basement piping, or plumbing are not eligible for reimbursement. So that mirrors exactly what we're doing up above under a city project. A street excavation permit is still required through the city. However, we'll treat it as an emergency repair and there's no charge. That way we at least have record as to what was done in the street. Backfilling within the city right-of-way by their contractor will be completed by under city supervision to make sure they compact it properly. The city will complete the asphaltic concrete pavement restoration at no cost to the property owner under our program of patching around the city. So we would check the patch, make sure it gets, completed by our contractor. Post-construction televising will be required when it's done to make sure everything looks good. And for this program, the city will set aside amount of funds each year for private lead lateral replacement. And this year we included in the budget $100,000. Once the funds are exhausted for the year, property owners will need to wait until the next year to be reimbursed. So if you came in November, we exhausted all our funds, you really want to replace it, you wouldn't get reimbursed until after the budget's approved and we work through with Pam the next year's budget. And then invoices will need to be submitted within 6 months of completing the work. Now, other items, eligibility. So we are offering this to people as part of our program going forward. And so what we're going to be saying, starting in 2025, for city-led projects, a property owner will be eligible for the full lateral relay using pipe bursting at the time of the project. And again, it's our project, so we're doing pipe bursting. If the city relays the sanitary lateral to the right-of-way as part of the project through open-cut construction, and the property owner does not participate in pipe bursting, the property owner will not be eligible for the city participation in the future. They were given their chance. We've spent that pot of money for that house to repair the lateral to the right-of-way. They won't be eligible in the future. However, for partial lateral relays that were completed by the city prior to this past year, prior to next year, I should say, the city will participate in the private lateral relay from the right-of-way to the house because those people, we didn't have the program in place. They weren't notified of this opportunity. So we thought we would still make that eligible for 50% cost share if they did the other work through pipe bursting or lining. And a person is only eligible, for this cost share or getting this program once. So we wouldn't, relay someone now and 20, 30, 50 years from now do it again. We want to get everybody up to plastic. If someone has plastic, they're not eligible because they already have plastic, so it'd be a one-time shot. And we saw other municipalities that are doing something similar, so this isn't something that's a stretch that we would be the only ones doing. And then eligibility right now would be for clay, concrete, cast iron, and ductile iron laterals. Again, this is a work in progress. We'll probably have people that'll come up with something we never thought about, and we might have to come back and update the board from a policy perspective. So this was just something to get us started.
It's great. I mean, again, another very good program. Alderperson Carpenter.
So when you have the cast iron pipe, and I read through this, you're going to clean that. They can get that clean? I mean, that, you know, that you could, now if you do the lining.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just trying.
So that's a good question, and they can. So for instance, next year, coming up on Ridgeway at Broadway, we've got a sanitary sewer that's got ductile iron in it, and it's corroded really bad. In fact, it's so bad we thought we had a pipe diameter change. And we showed it to the contractor, and they can grind that all out. Now, not always. Everything, you know, you could grind it out and find, oh, geez, the pipe is really deteriorated. But if it's holding its form, they can go in there and they can grind it. Now, it's a little bit easier on ours because we've got manholes to access it. There could be some issues that maybe, but again, we're giving them two options. So if it's not pipelining, they can pipe burst.
Yep.
And so if it was the contractor who's lining it says, nah, I can't clean that out well enough. I can't get my grinder in there and pull the material out and jet it. So then they'd have to go to pipe bursting.
And I think if I read that in there, they're gonna have to televise it to show that they have it clearing enough to do that.
Yeah, we'll be heavily involved because we'll really want to probably see a pre-pipe bursting and a post-pipe bursting, or a
Clean.
pre-clean because it could be lining. So we'll want to see it before and the finished product.
Okay.
And then by seeing the finished product, we'll know if the contractor was, you know, doing it right.
Yeah, okay, that's my
I'm curious to see how that works.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many techniques out there, and
Yeah.
it's only getting more.
And that's just it. You know, we came up with two techniques. Some contractor could come in and say, hey, listen, I've got this that works really, really well. Find out other municipalities that they're using it in, investigate it, and then we bring it back as an option.
That is a possibility then, huh? Something else
abs-
could be out there. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not closing the door on anything. It's kind of like, you know, pipe bursting is kind of a newer thing. And so that afforded us the ability to start this program of the full lateral. So someone else may come along and say, yeah, we can do this pipe coating. That's a material that's, so we'll just have to see what comes along technology-wise.
Because when you say that, it's because, I mean, the DNR hasn't approved it, but there's companies that want to get into water lines in lining them. But the DNR hasn't approved it yet because of the chemicals and everything else.
You're absolutely right. There are companies that are looking to be able to start lining water mains. Yep.
And everything. I mean, there's so many people out there with ideas and thoughts, so yes.
Other questions or comments? We'll go to Alderperson Hanson first.
The residents who haven't volunteered to participate in the program this year, has the fact that they might have finished basements been the main holdup for them?
One, I know of one for sure. Some people just didn't contact us. You know, we don't know why. Some people, maybe it's a privacy thing. As we go forward, you know, we're offering, there's an advantage to us like we talked about. We're getting a piece of plastic from the main to the house. But there is a benefit to the property owner. And, you know, if your basement's finished, I guess you just need to weigh, is it, you know, advantageous for you to deal with fixing on your own the finished basement and have us do it for free? Or is this something you're gonna say, no, I'm not interested in, you know? There was one property owner that was really interested, and then as we investigated it, they had PVC. Our pipe was old, but the building was newer and it was PVC beyond that. So then we replaced the stuff in the road with PVC. They already had PVC, so then, you know, so. But I only know of one that was a finished basement and decided to back out.
Scott?
So Eric had mentioned this is the last piece of the puzzle for the program that staff's been working on for quite some time. So, I mean, you know, it's kudos to staff and the city because, you know, Eric and what he's come up with, I mean, he's, you know, we all heard what the, you know, Green Bay Met and I&I issues. They're looking at Eric to, you know, I mean, what the Pere's developed. There's some bits and pieces people are trying to do, but this overall, you know, policy and programs that the board has discussed with Eric and staff, you know, we're kind of the leaders in it. I mean, actually, Eric's been asked to present in upcoming meetings what we're doing and stuff for the I&I, because I&I is a huge issue. So it is kudos to Eric and his team for what they've, you know, presented and actually for the board and council adopting those policies.
Yeah, we said it before, and I'm glad you said it again. We say it again. So very, very impressive. Lots of good stuff tonight. Alderperson Carpenter.
So, and just for any concerns of anybody that didn't do it this year, they're not into the policy yet.
Correct.
The policy starts in 2025. I mean,
Yeah.
so we didn't cut their doors even though they didn't contact us this year. You're just gonna make sure people understand that?
Yes, we'll have to kind of, like Chase did a really good job getting the foundation drain information out there. We're gonna have to do the same thing with this.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Scott?
And, on that note is just, we intend, from this, starting on 25 and every year after to budget money. So it's not like it's going to be like we had this ARPA money as 1 year. This is going to be kind of an ongoing thing once the board and councils approve, as long as they approve that budget every year, because it's going to take many, many, many years to address all these laterals.
No new vehicles.
That was a good one.
We got to weigh our budget somewhere. You want a nice truck wash, and then vehicles should last a lot longer.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that said, I'll make a motion to approve the draft policy.
I'll second.
Motion by me, second by Alderperson Ledman. Additional discussion or comments? Other than great job again, Eric. That said, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Up next, we have future agenda items. Anyone have anything? No? Nothing, huh? Well, no meeting next month then, I guess. Just like last month, and look what happened tonight.
Yeah.
Let's not let it
Made up
happen
for it.
again.
That's okay. I'll do that again.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion by me, second by Alderperson Ledman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you all.